If you want people to continue watching your videos, you're going to have to make them more interesting. And the best way to do that is pattern interrupts. So now a pattern interrupt is pretty simple. It is something that interrupts the flow of the video. Now this is not a jarring or negative interrupt in the video like a light falling over or somebody coughing or a person tripping, whatever. It's a pattern interrupt that increases the interest in the scene. Today I'm going to cover the 5 most common pattern interrupts you'll see in YouTube videos. So to start off with the most important one, which is B-roll. B-roll is an alternate shot to your A-roll. So in this video, this shot right here is my A-roll. It's me talking. My B-roll is other shots that add onto it. So if I'm talking about a Canon, so the Canon 80D, blah, 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 I'm going to want a shot of the Canon 80D or multiple shots. Might be an image, might be some videos. This adds some interest so somebody knows what you're talking about. So if I say describe the click of the shutter button is very satisfying on the Canon 80D, well, I will show an image or a video of somebody pushing the trigger, the shutter button on the Canon 80D. This will allow for the person to visualize the action rather than just hear it from me. Now, pattern interrupt dos, that is graphics. This is just stuff that pops up on your screen. It's sometimes like B-roll, it can sometimes cover the whole frame, but it is a digital graphic. So one way we've used a graphic pattern interrupt is in lighting videos we've done where we'll show a diagram of the lighting that we have created in either Photoshop or Illustrator. But what graphics you can use are practically endless. For one example, we made a graphic showing you a Bayer filter over the image and you could just go on and on and on. I know some people will add explosions or maybe they'll add a flash, something to intrigue the audience. So you just have to be creative and think of something that will make your audience want to watch your videos. And add value to the content, because a pattern interrupt cannot be jarring and pointless. It needs to be smooth and it needs to add value. So now the third pattern interrupt is music. Now you must be careful when you use music, because sometimes music is not appropriate, but other times it is very appropriate and actually necessary. So for instance, in this scenario, if I start blasting electro music behind me with bass drops and lyrics, it's terrible. You cannot focus on what I am saying right here. So there are some spots where you'd want to use music, like if you need a sting for an intro, you know, a da-dum, whatever, or a quick little bout of music to introduce or to send off an image. Or you have a quick cinematic sequence. It's often nice to have some background music, but you have to make sure that the music actually adds to the shot and it matches the shots that you have. So if you're getting some really calm, relaxing B-roll, and then you add intense electro music behind it, it often does not look good and it just destroys the mood. So make sure that your music fits the mood. So now I will correct myself. I did say B-roll and instead I should have said a cinematic sequence, because it was actually our A-roll that the cinematic sequence was. You'll see Peter McKinnon use this a lot, and a lot of people call it B-roll because it's additional shots. They think it's additional shots, but there's nothing behind it that would be considered A-roll. So therefore, that cinematic sequence is your A-roll. Now, under the umbrella of music is sound effects. Before I go any further, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. And sound effects are basically endless. You can add them in wherever necessary. But remember, they have to add, not subtract, from the value of your video. So if you're using them all the time and they're super loud and really intense, cut back on it. Or if you have no sound effects where there should be some sound effects, then you need to add some. So it's all about finding that balance of where you need sound effects, how loud they should be, and what sound effect is the best. For instance, cursing in video is often bleeped out, but you can use nifty little sound effects. So if you say a curse word, you can sometimes, there are some people who use a duck sound or a chipmunk I've even heard, or a horn. Get creative, find something that sounds good, that adds to the quality of your video. And also, it's got to match the feel, just like with music, because you don't want something that totally throws off your viewer by introducing a whole different feeling into the video. Our next pattern interrupt is text. Now this is a lot like graphics, but it can be used in different ways. Text is used to emphasize what somebody is saying. Now, text is different from graphics because it never takes up the full view of the frame. It is always something that is additive over your A-roll, but you can still see your A-roll. So you never want to cover the whole image with text. If I am saying something that is very important, you would add those words in down below as subtitles. Or if I'm explaining something like a list of things, for example, a lens that's 50 millimeters f1.8 and a lens that's 17 to 55 f3.5 to 7.2, which is really weird. You can add lists of items so that the viewer can still see them and doesn't have to remember what you said, because oftentimes people work better with text and reading when it comes to memory than with just hearing something. The last pattern interrupt is scene changes. This is where your camera view actually changes. So I could have a side camera, or I could even crop in. Now, this changes what your A-roll looks like. This is not adding B-roll. It's not adding anything, really. It's just changing the A-roll. As I said, this can be done by cropping in, cropping out, or having two camera angles. So when you are outside filming rather than in a studio, the actual movement of following somebody to the camera, say, can act as a scene change and a pattern interrupt, because as you move, you are changing the scene. Therefore, you're changing what the person is viewing on the video. Comment down below and tell us what pattern interrupt you use most frequently. We'd love to hear from you. And hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. But in the meantime, you can always click on this video right here that YouTube has suggested for you. Then what you're going to need to do is introduce pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupts that are, so there are 5 pattern interrupts that I'm going to cover that are the, So let's get right into this. Number 1, I'm going to start with, what do you want? Wait.